Welcome. Hello,
Hey, hello,
everyone.
team.
Hey everyone.
Good afternoon.
Tim,
Welcome.
Tim
D.
Tuttle, you're on fire, Tim.
D, welcome. Fatim, welcome. It's so nice to have you. Timothy, welcome. Christina, it's so great to have you. Wendy, Maya, Kelly.
Feel like
Oh,
we're
we
on
got
Wow.
the
Drew
road this
Baseberg.
morning,
So the
right?
the dream team from
Hi, Fatima.
California is coming in. Hey, Fatim, I
Hi.
miss you. I haven't seen you in a while. I'm
Yes,
glad
you
you're on.
are all good.
Welcome, welcome.
What's happening,
Hi.
Drew?
Good to see you.
So we're going to use
Thanks
the
for
chat
joining us.
this afternoon. Please go ahead. Let us know where you're calling in from, what city, state, country. We'd love to see that in the chat. We give a warm welcome. Let's see. Yes, Mexico
Hi,
City in the house. Awesome. San Pedro Belize. Awesome. Houston, Texas. Wow. Still in North America. Wow. Burlingame, California, LA, New York City, Baltimore, Maryland, Richmond, Virginia. Wow, awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, welcome. We want to just take a moment and invite you all to settle in. We want to welcome you to our Disrupted Work Reimagined. This is the leadership edition. You are in the right place if that's what you were looking for. I am Tiffany Odutoye, also known as Tiffany O. I'm the CEO of Virtual Partner, and it's my distinct pleasure to be on this journey with you as your MC for the next 90 minutes. Now, as we look to the future of work, it's very easy for us to feel like we need to overhaul everything, that we need to make radical, scary leaps just to keep up. And today, we want you to relax and let you know that we have a slightly different approach. I want to talk about a concept as we're settling in to this concept of a 1 degree shift. I know we've all heard of it. Pop a yes in the chat if you've heard of the 1 degree shift. Pop a yes in the chat. You heard of the 1 degree shift? Yes, I see. I see. In navigation, if you change your course by just 1 degree, yes, thank you, Dee. You've heard of this. So you're not strangers to it. You know, if you change your course by just 1 degree, you likely won't feel it in the moment. But over the long journey, that single degree is the difference between landing where you intended and landing somewhere completely new. Today is about finding your 1 degree. We aren't just looking for more stuff, more things to do, more things to put in the hopper or on your calendar. We're navigating toward a destination where time is your new luxury and adaptability is the new security. Yes, Kelly, thank you for affirming that. Now, if you're watching the replay, I just want to take a moment to welcome you as well. Thank you for joining us. And please be sure to pause the video at the various points where you can capture the QR codes that are going to be on the screen as they appear. That's going to give you access to all the goodies that we've prepared to help you pull the right levers in your business and with your leadership team on this leadership journey. Now, to help chart the course for us, I want to introduce you to our co-founders and curators of this movement. First, I want to introduce the originator of the Disrupted Conference. Now, this launched originally online, 25 tracks, loads of speakers. It was amazing. That led us to this 2.0 version that you're experiencing now. Tammy Alvarez, she is the CEO of the Career Winner Circle. Hi, Tammy. Welcome,
everybody.
welcome. Uh, she's a best-selling author and a professional keynote speaker. Now, as a former Wall Street executive, Tammy believes that everyone deserves to love Mondays. CWC's mission is to help 1 million people learn how to reignite the spark in their careers and businesses by 2034. A big, audacious goal indeed. She's here to set the expectations for today, and you're going to walk away with how you can engage with us beyond just today's session. Tammy, you have the floor.
Thanks, Tiffany. Appreciate it. And welcome, everybody. I know this is the year-end crunch, trying to get all the things done before we get to step out for a little bit. So I appreciate everyone who's made the time to be here. And just pop a yes in the chat for me. If, as you show up as a leader, do things feel harder than they used to? So give me that yes or a no if things don't, because with the work that Wendy, Mark, and I do, we see this a lot in terms of why do things feel so hard? And that is exactly what we are going to deconstruct today. Not only why things feel so hard, but more importantly, how to make them not feel so hard next year. As we're leading through this polycrisis environment, which Wendy is going to get us into, it is no wonder things are hard. Between AI and the tech shifts and tariff whiplash and, all of the geopolitical nightmares that we're all suffering through, things are really difficult. Mark is going to talk to us about new ways to really think about how we leverage all of the resources we have to bear to help our teams and our businesses succeed. And then I'm going to start to talk about some of the ways that we need to evolve as leaders, because we have this thing that's called the leadership breakpoint that I think when we start to dig in, everyone's going to start to recognize some of those warning signals. So the whole mission for today is to give you new ways to operate as a leader, new ways to produce results for your organization, and new ways to think about how you can show up better for yourself, for your family, for your business, and for your teams. So I'm very excited to lean into that, and we'll give you all the opportunity to chime in. This is not meant to be a monologue. This is absolutely meant to be interactive for those of you who are with us live and made that time. And then we're also going to have some breakout, or we're going to have some workshop sessions too while we're all together so we can put this into action. So I'm excited for you and the results that you'll see today. And this 90 minutes is guaranteed to be action-packed, so stay tuned. Thanks, Tiffany.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tammy. And now I'd like to introduce her co-founder, Mark Monchek. Now, Mark is the co-founder of the Disruptive Work Reimagined, this 2.0 version you're experiencing today. He's the author of The Culture of Opportunity, How to Grow Your Business in an Age of Disruption. He's the founder of Opportunity Labs, which provides strategy, leadership, and culture for businesses that do good in the world. Now, he'll be here setting the stage for this entire series and the DWRU concept. Mark, you have the floor.
Thanks, Tiffany, and so happy to see my friends and colleagues here and some new people I'm meeting today. I grew up at the intersection of business, art, and psychology. Both my families were immigrant entrepreneurs who basically started a business to survive in the United States, not knowing the language and not knowing the culture. And they built these small businesses into mid-sized powerhouse businesses. And I could see working in these businesses how much of a positive influence they were able to have on their customers, their employees, and the communities they do business in. And that's our mission here at Disrupted Work Reimagined, to create a community of mid-market leaders and those people who support those leaders to be able to make a better world through better leaders, better companies, better world. That's all I'm going to say today, because we've got a lot of action, and everybody do the polls with us, ask questions, dive in. This is experiential, and we want you to come out with some new ideas and some action steps to follow through and have a great 2026. Back to you, Tiffany. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. And thank you both, Tammy and Mark. Okay, so how do we get from the exhaustion that Tammy described to the abundance that Mark described? Our team put our heads together and we decided we needed a map. So once again, please check the chat, grab a copy of the Leadership Journey Roadmap if you haven't already. We're going to walk through that together. Kelly, could you pull up the map for us, please? Now, this visual that you see is your guide for the next 90 minutes. It's a lot, so I'm going to walk you through it, and we're going to go in columns. So we've designed this path to show you the shifts required to navigate disruption and remain relevant. Now, you'll notice the headers say 1-degree shifts. That's because, again, we believe small shifts can lead to really bold wins. Let's start with phase 1. This is around clarity, and Wendy White is going to walk us through that. That's on the left. You see the clarity shifts. This is about leading from head and inner wisdom, and we're shifting from the illusion of stability to the power of adaptability. In phase 2, our center, this is our leverage pillar. Mark Monchek's going to dig into this one for us and unpack it. It's the center right here. We move from I to we. And we shift from competition to collaboration. Look forward to some of those shifts that we're going to unpack there. Now, in phase number 3, we dig into the evolution pillar. This is Tammy Alvarez's lane. And on the right, we're going to focus on the evolution shifts, the shift from control to calibration. It's about elevating your leadership to ask smarter questions and prioritizing quality of thought over speed. Now, how we're going to use this map, you'll see the boxes at the bottom. That's just not white space. It isn't just for notes. By the end of this hour or our 90 minutes together, I want you to write down your action, your calls to action that you're going to take to make those 1-degree shifts. Now, I want to just, you might be asking yourself, well, why these 3 specific shifts? Where do they come from? We didn't just pull these out of the air. We're tracking 10 critical trends as a team that are redefining leadership right now. Now, we reference these because ignoring them is why we feel many leaders are exhausted and feeling exhausted, like they're swimming upstream. But by embracing them, we believe this is how you'll gain momentum. So listen for the ones that resonate the most with you. And you can pop a number in the chat to what the ones that resonate with you, okay? Number 1, the trend we're watching, purpose versus position. This is success is shifting from status to contribution. Number 2, autonomy versus income. This is where time is becoming the new luxury. Trend number 3, life design versus accumulation. This intentional living is replacing more stuff. Trend number 4, well-being versus busyness, where health is the new status symbol. Pop a number in the chat, 1, 2, 3, or 4, if they resonate with you. 5, social capital versus this nuclear benchmarking, where networks replace milestones. If that resonates with you, pop a 5 in the chat. 6, access over ownership. This is accessing what you need versus collecting a lot of things. We saw number 7, creativity versus productivity, where originality is the new engine of value, if that resonates with you. Reputation versus status signaling, number 8, where your verified integrity is replacing perceived prestige. Number 9, restoring systems versus reducing harm. This is where sustainability is giving way to regeneration. And finally, number 10, adaptability versus stability. Reinvention is the new security. Now, today, we're going to focus on just 3 pillars, not all 10 of those, right? We're going to focus on the ones that we believe make enable what you've just heard to be possible. Let's start with clarity. So to get us started on this track, if you'll please pull up our first poll, we're talking about the 1-degree shifts that we're focusing on today, moving from position toward purpose, busyness toward well-being, and status toward proven integrity. Now, our first poll is around clarity. Now, let's start with this one. Before we bring up our speaker, let's see what's blocking us for clarity. All right, we see the numbers coming in. As soon as we get to 80%, 90%, we'll close the poll. We see the numbers are coming in. Here's where we're thinking about targets moving. This is that external chaos piece, or is it internal? Looks like the external chaos is driving most of us. And it's interesting, we're almost there in terms of our poll completion. C is where I don't trust the old data. That's uncertainty and then feeling stuck, lack of vision. All right, it looks like we're still number A is tracking here, right? Targets keep moving, external chaos. Okay, 70%, a few more, and we'll close out our poll. Okay, we'll close out our poll. If you'll please show the results here. Yes, 50% are feeling the external chaos is driving them. And that's not surprising. The beautiful thing is that we're all in the same place feeling sort of that burn in the road. And you're in the right place because guess what? Wendy Williams is going to unpack how we remove the barrier to clarity. So let me introduce Wendy, please. Wendy is an accomplished consultant, facilitator, social impact leader with over 30 years of experience guiding organizations through growth and transformation. You're in the right place to have her unpack this clarity barrier. She's the co-founder and CEO of the Continuum Consulting Services, and she's the founder of the Anthem Award-winning nonprofit Let's Choose Love, which supports grassroots projects focused on healing and community regeneration. Wendy has worked with global powerhouses like Pfizer, Novartis, and Whole Foods, helping leaders build trust in the face of uncertainty. She's also the host of the Love on Record podcast, and she works with the Crossworks Collaboratory to explore how organizations can navigate disruption by aligning head, heart, and purpose. She's here to help us move from shock to regeneration. Please show some love in the chat, hearts, and welcome Wendy White. Please, Wendy, you have the floor.
Thanks. Thanks so much, Tiffany. I appreciate that. Everyone, welcome. It's such a pleasure to be able to be here. I think it would be good for us all to just take a breath because let's face it, the last 5 years have been a bit crazy. And we are living in a world that's unlike any other that we've ever lived, worked, or had to lead in before. So just sort of take one big breath and acknowledge it's been hard and we're all in it together. I might have needed that breath more than you did. The name of this talk is Visionary Leaders as Architects of the Unimaginable. And when I talk about leaders, I believe we're leaders no matter where we are. If we're an individual contributor, we're leaders within our own sphere of influence. We're leaders if we're leading a department or we're a manager, or if we're a CEO of an entire company. This applies to all of us. We are leading and working in times that are unimaginable. And with that comes we become the architects of not only the current, but of the future. It's a pretty bold, audacious time. And of course, it's why we're pretty tired. And we can't rest on things that have happened in the past or the way we've done it or the traditional leadership models, because so much has changed that we need to kind of roll up our sleeves and figure it out together and not just go from what we know from the past, but we're going to have to follow more of our heart and intuition to be able to lead the way. So to give you an example, it was on January 2020, and I was doing a consulting project for AstraZeneca, and it was a planning initiative that we've been working on for several months and have had multiple different times that we were getting together to work. So we just finished the session, and I turned to the leader, and we're getting ready to schedule the next one, which would have been in March. And she looked at me and she said, "Wendy, I don't think that we should plan anything for March yet." I looked at her like, "What do you mean we shouldn't plan anything for March?" That seemed a little odd to me. And she said, "Wendy, we're really tracking this virus. We're looking at what's going on in China, and I don't trust it. I don't know where we're going to be in March." And so I looked at her because it was sort of the first time it had come into my awareness. And I realized if a pharma leader was worried about a virus that was in China, I ought to start paying attention. And so what we did as our consulting firm, Continuum is a boutique consulting firm, is we wanted to stay ahead of the curve. And so that means when you hear things, when you get signals for things that are coming down the pike, you want to lift your head out of the grind of the day to day and start to focus on the horizon and scan for what's emerging. Well, we started looking and we watched the virus go through China. And then we saw it jump over to Europe. And so even before people in the US were talking about it or was even much on the news, we started tracking it and started thinking about how do we position ourselves if and when it comes to the US. Well, then we started hearing about it and they said, "Well, you might have lockdown for 2 weeks," but we didn't listen. We didn't pay attention to just what we were being told, because as there's so many mixed messages right now, that what we did is we watched what we actually saw. And then from that, we extrapolated what is the meaning to that and how do we best prepare for what we see coming down the pike. And in order to do that, you need to lift up your head and look around. So it was a pretty interesting time. And so what we did is, as a boutique consulting firm, we were so much of our activities, like, our strategy sessions, our retreats, our leadership development programs, they were very in-person intensive. And so we knew that if we were going to stay in business, we had to quickly regroup and do what we do in person virtually and do it excellently. So we pretty quickly learned about Zoom, and then we learned about mural and whiteboard. And I come from an outdoor adventure background, so we do a lot of adventure kind of activities. And like, how are we going to do that online? But we got very creative and we did it. And so we were able to stay open and be able to continue to serve our clients pretty quickly when things began to change and transition. And it helped us to kind of stay in business. It was rough, but with that, we also found opportunities. And so, for instance, we had a lot of people working for us. We have, 4 full-time, and we had about 20 part-time people that worked with us. It allowed us, when we worked virtually, to be able to bring in some of our younger team members to be able to sit in on meetings that they never would have been able to be a part of for at least another 10 years into their career. But they became our tech specialists, and they became the people that captured notes for us, and they learned. And we were able to build up their bench strength, tremendously, because of the opportunity that the lockdown and everything going virtual afforded us. So, there was so many opportunities, but we had to leverage what we call a lot of futurist type of technologies. We had to start to learn how to, what they call, scan the environment for signals. So, what's coming down the pike? What are some of the clues about where we are now and where we're headed? And then how do we design things to be able to meet those new kind of challenges? And we call that almost like, designing the adjacent possible, not just dealing with what is, but creating what's going to work. At the same time, we're trying to leverage and stay in flow with what is actually happening. So it was a very interesting time, as you know, probably for all of us. And when we were working with leaders, we found that there was no roadmaps to be able to figure out how to begin to navigate these times of disruption. And so one of the first things we did is we used our past experience to understand the present, to look into the future. And we wanted to figure out, how do we support leaders to understand where they are with all of these things coming down the pike, and what is needed from leaders, and how do they lead their organization through. So, having come from an adventure background, we were pretty familiar with disaster-based models of working through disasters. But we realized, the pandemic was not a disaster where, like a hurricane, where it happens, it hits, and it's a one and done, and you know what disaster you're left with at the end. This was more like a war, where there was like one thing coming, and then we had other hits that happened. Like, we went from the pandemic to supply chain issues to Black Lives Matter to political unrest to controversy over vaccines. So every single time we thought we had one thing taken care of, there were more things that came down the pike. So how do we navigate that? And so we learned, and what we did, I'm going to send this over in the chat, the floor. But we kind of looked at, there were specific phases that we went through. And so the first slide will share with you just sort of the full model, if you could pull that up. But we looked at it when crises hit. We couldn't think of a better term to be able to share. It was that, oh shit, man, not another thing coming down the pike. What are we going to do? And we found that, like leaders, they went very internal. They sequestered in their rooms. They hovered. When we were going to go through lockdown, they hovered, and almost overnight, they transitioned their whole workforce to work from home. And we figured it out. There was so much innovation that came. And then they had to figure out, like, how do they, communicate with their people? How do they get them their technology? psychology. There were so many things we had to work through. Then, we looked at supply chain, and we found that, we had tankers that were stuck out in the ocean, and or they got into docks and there was nobody there to transport the goods. So that was another, oh no, what do we do with this? And so each time they went into that crisis hits mode. But it was amazing how fast we were able to get to, well, this is just our new norm. Yeah, I kind of like working from home. This is gonna help me be with my family more. Little did we know we were going to be with our family a lot, but it was our new norm. But what happened is then more things came, which is what's being termed now, and Tammy mentioned it's polycrises. We're not just dealing with one thing, we're dealing with so many unknowns. And so that's where the wait, there's more comes. And then at some point we got to, we've got this, like working from home, we got this, no problem. The stage is that I remember being on a Zoom call, and we had people from California and people that were from North Carolina and some other parts around the country, and they were all dealing with different things. We had to deal with the whole human. It was the first time that, like, we were brought into people's living rooms and we saw their cats and their dogs, and we were able to really be more intimately involved with their challenges. Like, the people in California were worried about wildfires and how they were going to navigate. Well, some of the people in North Carolina, there was a storm coming down at the beach and they were worried about flooding, all within the same meeting. So it became quite interesting on how we were able to kind of work with that. It allowed us to be able to give them a way to look at where they are. And then we looked at what are some of the change management and leadership things that are needed. So it gave them something to hold on to. And what happens is this is not linear, it was circular. So each time something happened, you might have like the leaders might have been in no shit trying to figure things out. Well, the rest of the organization was in that more stabilization. But the phase that we were most interested in is, if you look at phase 1, 2, 3, and 4, they're very reactive. And what happens, and I've seen you put that even in the poll, is the target keeps on moving. So we're so focused on those targets, we're focused very internally, that sometimes as leaders, we're missing what are the possibilities, what are the opportunities, and how do we prepare ourselves for what's coming next. So I believe in the regenerative way part, phase 5, it's an opportunity to lift our heads up and to start to scan the environment so that we can be prepared and take advantage of these different opportunities. And so you can take that down now. Thank you for that. And in the chat, you have the full model that gives you a lot of those types of knowledge that I'm hoping you might be able to serve you as well when you're in your planning process. But we also found that there was some tools that were incredibly important, and mindset shifts that helped us during this. One is the importance of resiliency, because we had leaders that were not only leading during this time of chaos, they also had to self-manage and to be able to take care of themselves and take care of their own emotions, because they were also dealing with kids from home. They were dealing with people that might be getting sick in their family. And so that ability to be able to do self-care, to get into more meditation, to be able to manage yourself at the same time you can more effectively then lead others, became one of the challenges and trends we saw. Another thing that we found during that time that's really helpful in that stage 5 is to pay attention to trends research. So I don't know if you're familiar with Deloitte, but there's, Deloitte and McKinsey, and some of them come out with some pretty amazing trends research for like 2026. You could look at what are the things that are emerging. Part of our role as leaders is to pay attention to not only what we're doing every day, but also what are some of the trends that may be coming that we're going to have to deal with. with. Uh, one of the things that we talk about is the importance of tapping into the genius in the room. So one of the things that really shifted is it used to be the leaders would have to deal with all of the different challenges that were emerging, and they would make the decision, then cascade that decision down. Well, they're leading, and leaders don't know what to do because they've never been in this role before. And so they found that, the answers and solutions were often within the organization at all levels. So you saw that kind of de-leveling, the being able to look at people that are on the ground and making sure that we're getting input and ideas from throughout the organization. We call that tapping the genius in the room. And then the other tool that we wanted to share with you that can help you navigate during these times is what we call the squint factor. Anybody squint? Do you know what I mean when I talk about squint? Yeah, it's like you look and things are kind of fuzzy, but if you squint, all of a sudden it becomes a little more clear. And so we are doing a lot of squinting. And we also found if you put some provocative questions and you get the right people in the room and you talk about, what is emerging and we squint together, we can all of a sudden get a little bit clearer view of what's coming next. When we have that clearer view, and we call that kaleidoscope click moment, then it's a lot easier for us to take the next steps forward with a little more confidence. Again, using our intuition, using our heart to navigate as much as we leverage our head and our logic and our past experience, because this is new territory for all of us. And just before I kind of go further, does anybody have any questions about that? About how to squint? Okay. I'm not saying chat, so I'm going to kind of go forward, but I'm going to give you a for instance of how Continuum squinted most recently. And then I'm going to be asking you as I do this to be thinking about what are some things that may be happening in your world and your business that are not quite here yet, but you see coming that maybe we could practice squinting into. So for us at Continuum, as a boutique consulting firm, we work closely looking at all different things that are evolving, but especially really getting into AI and artificial intelligence. And if we're looking into the future, AI could potentially replace a lot of the things that we do. They're already serving as coaches. AI is already being able to support strategy and other efforts. So what we've been working on recently is squinting and looking at what can we do as a consulting firm working with the human side of business that AI cannot. So that was our squint question this last month. And we started looking. And so then, of course, we lifted up our head. We started scanning the environment, and things that started to emerge were things like, well, the U.S. Attorney General put out a report declaring an epidemic of loneliness, and isolation is one of the number one concerns in the U.S., isolation and loneliness. And then we looked at, well, people are losing their skills and their comfort in connecting face to face. We're losing it because we've been working virtual. We have a whole group of young people that are coming into the workforce that were locked down and didn't have a lot of that interaction for a couple of years. Then we also looked at, there was like this increasing virtual and global work environments were creating more distance and disconnection. So as we started looking at that question, what emerged for us is the one thing that we could do better and differently that AI cannot do is the human connection of business. So we're going back to our roots. When we started 30 years ago, we specialized in designing retreats or transformational gatherings. And we were like, AI can't do that. We're going to buckle down and go back to our core and start working on designing retreats, bringing people together, helping to forge those relationships, to resolve conflicts, to plan together. And we can do that more uniquely than anyone else. So it's carving a new path for our business. And if someday AI learns how to do that, we'll pause, think again, squint again, and redesign and redevelop our business. So that's a squint factor. And what I'd like to do is to with the next few minutes that we have is to give you the opportunity to think about what are you squinting with now in your business. For instance, it could, some of the trends that are coming would be the skills gap that we have with AI, and a lot of people, we have, that might be something that you're squinting at. What's your unique value proposition? If you could put into the chat, a couple of things that you and your business are squinting on now, that would be really helpful. Those were just a few that I had shared, but very, very similar to yours. Yeah. How do we stay relevant? How do we become more predictive in the business performance? Thanks, Tammy. I'm curious if anybody else is seeing that skills gap is another trend that's coming pretty hard and fast and furious with us. And what I want you to think about now is how to partner with AI. Yes, providing services in addition to products. Thank you so much. So here are your squint questions. And with our last minute or two, a couple minutes, I would like for you to be thinking about what, I'm going to put them right in here. Let me just share them with you. But it's, what is one new possibility or capability that AI is giving you? Like, what's one human strength that becomes more essential and not less? What is one unexpected opportunity that has emerged for your business or team? So as you look at this, I'd love to be able to hear from just a couple of people, with these new things that are coming down the pike, what do you see as a new opportunity for you? What can you do that's different? You put in the chat, automate operations so I can focus on what matters. Thanks. Oh, Tiffany, it's huge, the skills gap. Using AI to build, what was it? Yeah, different learning paths. Automate operations. These are all great things to really start looking on. But the challenge is that as leaders, is ask yourselves these squinting questions. Bring in the people in the room from all levels and have these discussions. Be careful not to stay so focused in the day-to-day operations of everything you're doing and all the craziness and the oh shit moments, and take some time every week to look at what are the opportunities, what's coming down the path, and how can I prepare? Have AI challenge beliefs. Love that, Mark. Problem solving better. These are all opportunities. But shifting our focus from the problem to the opportunities is going to be essential for our success in the future. So thank you so much. I love that, Drew. It's giving you access to execute your ideas instead of seeing your ideas too difficult to accomplish. I wish you luck out there. It's not easy to navigate the times that we're in right now, and hopefully some of these tips and tools in the model will help you with that.
Thank you so much, Wendy. It is amazing to just focus on some of the trends that you shared with us. For me, a few big takeaways. I don't know if you also have them. You can put your takeaways in the chat. But that whole thing about staying in flow, really connecting the past experience to understanding your present and predicting the future, that was really hot. And the other one, a couple of tools, that squinting exercise and squinting together, that was pretty powerful. I can't wait to hear back from those who are in the room today, some of the results from squinting together in the next few weeks. Thank you. That was so powerful. All right. So now, everyone, this is your moment. This is your moment. This is a safe place for you to share. I want you all to go to the chat. And based on the activity you just did with Wendy, what is the 1-degree shift you're committing to make regarding clarity? Is it the squinting together? Is it diving into the trends? Is it around creating this sort of change management process in your organization to see where people are related to resilience and readiness for some of these new things coming? Is it about staying in the flow, designing the adjacent possible? What's your 1-degree shift? Oh, yes, thinking about what's possible. Please pop more in the chat. This is your moment to make that commitment.
I love that, run tiny experiments at a faster pace, Tiffany. That's a good one.
Yes. Very hot. Very, oh, I love it. People are popping them in the chat. We want you to leave with something that will make a difference for you and your business in 2026. All right, let's recalibrate now. And we're going to move into our second pillar, our second lane. And as we move to leverage, we can't do this alone. So let's see where our opportunities might be hiding. I'm going to invite our tech team to please pull up poll number 2. And this one is called the opportunity gap. And here we're looking at where you see the biggest missed opportunities for you or your clients in your business or in theirs right now. Is it around competing when we should be collaborating, hoarding resources instead of sharing? Is it around the speed too slow to spot the shifts? Or is it that we're working in silos? You notice, what are you beginning to see? As soon as we get to 80%, we will share the results. We're getting poll. Can everyone see the poll? Yes. Thank you, Stephen, too, for participating. Martha taking steps after me. Yes, I appreciate all the comments that you're putting in for your 1-degree shifts. Our poll is on at 23%. We're almost there. Yep, I see the number climbing. And we'll wait for a few more to participate in our poll. What opportunities do you see for you or your clients? Yeah. All right. We're almost there. We're almost there. Our participation is climbing. Excellent. Thank you all so much for participating. I am noticing here we're almost at number 2, Mark, as we begin this shift. We are competing when we should be collaborating. This is where the sentiment in the room is. Interesting. No one is feeling the pinch when it comes to being too slow to spark market shifts. Everyone is able to see what's happening, what's coming ahead of us. The challenge that people have is around the collaboration piece. Thank you very much. Here, please share the results with everyone. Please, you can end the poll and share results. All right, everyone, you see 78% we're competing when we should be collaborating.
Tiffany, I think there were only 2 questions in the poll. I think we didn't get all 4 questions the way you shared them. Anyway, just I think there was only 2 of the questions that were repeated.
1 question, 4 options.
Yeah, but the 4 options are not.
Yeah, we didn't have 4. We only had 2.
Oh, well, please.
Anyway, that's just a glitch. We'll fix that next time. Apologies, everyone.
Thank you very much, Mark, for sharing that with us. Yes, we'll work on that behind the scenes. Well, Mark, since you have the mic, there's I thought it was pretty powerful just for those that did participate. We had a good number that weighed in on that middle ground. And it's interesting as we begin to think about this, Mark. We know that you are going to be back and walk us through this journey. We're going to go deeper into the opportunity intelligence and show us exactly how to shift from scarcity to abundance. Now, we talked about collaborating being one when we should be doing that and spotting market shifts. So we'll go ahead and turn it over to Mark to unpack opportunity intelligence for us and lead us through an activity where we can make our 1-degree shift.
Thank you, Wendy, for a great presentation. Thanks, Tiffany. So when I wrote my first book, Culture of Opportunity, How to Grow Your Business in an Age of Disruption, came out in 2017, I thought that was disruption. That seemed to me disruption. Well, now in 2025, I think disruption has taken a whole nother radical shift. So when I started writing my second book, Opportunity Intelligence, How to Thrive in an Age of Radical Disruption, I started to go back to the origin story. I always think it's important to understand the origin story of a company, the origin story of a person, the origin story of a relationship. So I went way back to 1981, which was the highest crime rate year in New York City since they kept statistics. So I was married 2 years. Provi and I, my wife then, had bought our first home, a dream home in Brooklyn, in Midwood, and we were ready to build a life, raise a family there. So after 6 days, we had moved in. We went to a party. We were up in the elevator. And as I'm telling you this story, which I will share opportunity intelligence concepts through this story. I want you all to think about a radical disruption that maybe you could relate to from this story. Right, so I'm up in the elevator opens, and our best friend Freddie says, "Your house is on fire." I said, "Freddie, that's not funny." He was a jokester. I thought maybe he was joking. He said, "No, Mark, your house is actually on fire." So we raced to the car. We went to Brooklyn. We turned down Bedford Avenue. And that was the moment of shock. We saw 5 fire trucks and water pouring out the front porch, smoke billowing over the neighborhood. It was a horrible, bad movie scene that I couldn't really grasp that this was actually happening to us after 6 days, having not even unpacked our furniture and our clothing. I didn't know what to say. Provi was shaking, crying. I'm hysterical. I'm numb. I went up to her. I looked her in the eye. I put my arms around her. I said, "Now we can have the kitchen you always wanted." So we board up the house and we start to think about the insurance and how to rebuild. Within the next few days, vandals come in the middle of the night and they take out 4 hand-carved fireplace mantles. They come back the next day, they take out 6 stained glass windows. They come back one more time and they take out our TV, microwave, bike. So we decided we have to move back in this house. We won't have a life. We won't have a house. So we moved back in April, wet, damp April of 1981, with no heat, no hot water, no alarm system, no windows, no kitchen, and no money. How were we going to survive this? The first thing I had to accept, and it was really difficult to do, that this was something I had to realize. I had to accept it and eventually learn how to embrace it. Because if I would have denied it, if I would have minimized it, if I would have fought against it, we never would have survived. Once we accepted this opportunity, I started to see things show up. People in the neighborhood came by with food, with ideas, with references for plumbing and electrical, and this person and that person. Freddie moved in with us and he helped me contract the house. I couldn't even barely nail a nail into the wall. I knew nothing about construction, but he did, and I knew something about resilience and about courage because my family had already taught me that. So we now looked at this house and this broken down shell, and we figured out how to be resilient, how to embrace the people who came to work for us, nurture those relationships, nurture the relationships in the community, which we only been there 6 days, and find a way to actually shape the opportunity to go from disaster to challenge, and to be able to get an empowered flow of the people working with us to be able to actually make some progress. So Thanksgiving of that year, we celebrated and we were grateful for all the help that we had gotten. And we had finally had a kitchen. We finally had a livable house, barely more than livable. It took us 6 years to actually bring the house back to its glory that it had been built in 1899. So I'm going to show you the concepts that I just shared with you in that story, and hopefully you could relate to a disaster or a disruption that happened in your life and maybe see the shifts that happen to you personally and to the organizations that you are working with. Tammy, could you share the first slide in the operative intelligence, how to thrive in an age of radical disruption?
I can't. Is this the one you want?
Go back. One more. Go back to the second one.
That's it. That's the beginning.
Okay. Oh, that's the first one. Okay, so go ahead. Yeah. So you remember 2008? Yeah. I'm sorry. You're right. 2008. The one that you had up at the beginning.
Sorry for the PowerPoint whiplash, guys.
All right. Remember 2008? There was this global economic crisis, and that was perceived stability, but actually there was never any real stability. If you think about all the things that happened over the many, many years, we thought 2008 was a stable period, but actually it was way more unstable than we actually realized. In 2017, my book was published. The Trump administration #1 started. All the kinds of things that we now see: political change, climate change, instability. Then we had COVID, which Wendy mentioned really, really articulately. We learned how to change how we work, how we live. And then now in this year, we have unprecedented shifts in politics, technology, economics, and society. So we've really never had actual stability. But now we see it because it seems more in our face and more radical than ever. And in some ways it is. In some ways it's just a evolution of what we've always had. You can go to the next slide, Tammy. So the three shifts that Tiffany had mentioned earlier, from I to we, success is no longer a solo journey. The true impact comes from our collective wisdom, shared vision, and mutual support, which is what I had to learn going from somebody who was trained as an athlete, and as a scholar, I was an I. And when I had a house and we had a house that we needed to get a lot of help with, I had to turn from an I into a we. Okay, number 2, next slide. So from scarcity to abundance, I had to see that even though we had no money and we had a home that was barely livable, that the abundance actually came from the collective networks that we were able to nurture and that came to us from their generosity. And a lot of the abundance was really in Provi and our family's resilience, our courage, all those things that our parents and grandparents taught us. And a lot of the abundance comes from within. And when you recognize the abundance you have from within and from without in your community, you start to see there's way more than you ever realized that you had. Okay, you can go to the next slide. From competition to collaboration, the future belongs to those who build together, turn rivals into allies, and challenges into shared victories. That's something that is really difficult to learn because we grow up in sports, we're competing, in students, when we're a student, we're competing. I remember when I was in first grade, my mother told me that there's only a few spots in these elite colleges, and I had to get into one of them. I start to think of my fellow students as competitors. And we grow up in a business world where competition is value. We have to beat the competition. In sports, we have to win. And actually, that is an old concept that really we need to just let go of and realize that competition, collaboration is the new competition. We can really only work together when we embrace the we, when we see the abundance, and we really see that many people that might have been our competitors are actually can be our partners and our allies. We move to the next slide. So a new approach to opportunity that I learned through this disaster that became a challenge, that became an opportunity, is the opportunity mindset is to accept disruption at first and then embrace it. Then to shape the opportunity, I had to make this fire not a disaster, not something that happened to me, but I had to make it a challenge that could actually create a better life for our family and the people who helped us. I had to access points of leverage, finding a place to stand and practicing strategic intuition, which we're going to do all together in a few minutes, was very key. So when you are in a disaster, and as Wendy talked about, all the poly crisis and all the overwhelm that we have when disasters happen, it's very difficult to find that place to stand. Archimedes is the only thing I remember from 10th grade geometry was Archimedes, a mathematician, said, "Give me a lever and a fulcrum and a place to stand, and I can lift the earth." I'm going to teach you today how to find that place to stand and how to figure out where to put the lever and the fulcrum so you can actually move your 1% and 1% and 1% forward. Building collaborative networks, nurturing reciprocal relationships, understanding that in a collaborative world, you have to ask people, how can I support you? What can I do for you? And then ask, what could you do for me? And realize we live in an interdependent world. Nature and life has always been interdependent. We just convinced ourselves that it was scarcity and competition. And now we're realizing what it actually is. And then empowering flow in your networks, in your companies, in your organizations, in your communities, discover and leverage talent, ambition, and values, and help us get into that flow state where we can really make the 1% and the 1% move along a trajectory where we're going upwards and we're meeting that disruption with opportunity. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So the business ecosystem that we live in and the life ecosystem also, inside your organization, There's sales, there's technology, there's customer service, there's product development, there's management, there's finance, there's operations. And outside the organization is your government service providers, market sources of capital, the talent pool for potential employees, supply chain, and of course, customers. And as we see technology and AI is outsourcing or or doing a lot of the stuff that's inside of that circle more than ever. And we've got to learn how to partner with AI, not to think of it as something that is going to take our jobs away or remove us, but figure out, as Wendy said, what's the human thing that we can do that matches, as Drew was saying, with a technology that makes that 2 and 2 equal 5 and 5 and 5 equal 13 and all of that. All right. I'm going to stop and see if there are any questions. Either put it in the chat or raise your hand, raise the physical hand, raise the digital hand. I've covered a lot of ground really fast. And I want to see if we have any questions before we go into the points of leverage exercise, which we're going to all do together. Questions, comments? Let's see in the chat.
Don't see anything in the chat, Mark.
I don't see anything in the chat. Anybody want to raise their hand and have a question or comment?
Mark, too, we're asking people to use our Q&A, so we'll invite the audience to please use the Q&A, and we'll pull some either for now, or Mark will have a Q&A towards the end too, so we'll make sure we capture questions.
Yeah. All right, Mark, I'm going to ask the group a question if they don't have anything for you before we move on, if you don't mind.
Yep, please.
So what I found is one of the more, let's call it esoteric concepts of the leverage that we need to think about is the fact that competition or the collaboration is the new competition. So whether that's a peer in the office, whether that's your friend and me industry. So with the folks that are here, is this something that you're already practicing? Or is this a new concept for you? And I'd love to see in the chat, how that shows up for you, because it's, I think, one of the newer concepts that I think I find a lot of leaders either don't quite understand how to execute or haven't heard that this is a new way of expanding your leverage. So in that chat, collaboration is the new competition. How comfortable and familiar are you with that?
And anybody who wants to just raise your hand and speak, we got a group here. I'd love to hear some of my colleagues and friends. Are you doing this? Is it difficult? Is it easy? What have you learned from it? So I'm going to call on you, Adam. Adam, my dear friend, Adam Bryant. You have worked in so many different organizations, and you, as your role as a fractional CFO and other fractional executive roles you've got to jump into situations where you're new and unknown, and you have to actually make relationships pretty quickly. What have you learned about competition, or I'm sorry, collaboration being new competition?
I think one of the things that I find I do when I'm at a new client or something like that is really try to understand what their challenges are. And I usually frame it as saying, if there's one thing I could do for you to make your life easier or better or whatever, what is it? And then begin to drill in on that, because you're then, it's a non-threatening type of question. It's a help question. And it begins to have that dialogue, certainly for somebody that doesn't know me, I don't know them. And I find it works very, very well.
It does work well, because I've worked with you quite a long time, Adam, and you have that brilliance of asking that question in such a genuine way that people actually respond.
You've also got to be genuine, Mark. You've got to be genuine in the way you operate.
Exactly.
Too.
And so Stephen Meyer, you've also been in a lot of situations where you've had to jump in pretty quickly into a disruptive situation. What is your secret sauce, your magic for creating that collaboration?
Like an organizational dynamic, I think it's cultivating neutrality, calmness, and just like deep listening and getting people to see the common ground. I put in the chat, and I think you and I have talked about this, Mark, that it's kind of counterintuitive that not-for-profits have a really hard time collaborating. They're focused on their lane, and especially now when there's so much pressure and disruption, you'd think it would be a time to link arms, but there's like a scarcity mentality and hunkering down. And so it's just trying to get people to shift from that is where I start.
All right, cool. So we're going to go back to the next slide, and we're going to do a short exercise, and then we're going to turn it over back to Tiffany and then to Tammy.
Mark, is that the guided meditation slide? Is that what
Yep.
you want to do? Okay. All right.
All right. So place to stand is really stepping outside of your world and using strategic intuition to find your points of leverage, which are often underutilized resources, critical obstacles, and new opportunities. So if you would join me just for a quick guided meditation to close your eyes, put your feet on the floor, take a nice, deep, full breath, and just start to open up some wisdom, that quiet place. Take all the things you happened this morning, all the things going to happen this afternoon, put them aside, and moving into that quiet space of wisdom in your life right now, in your business right now. What might be the points of leverage, either an underutilized resource, a critical obstacle that you have to overcome, or a new opportunity that you maybe want to take advantage of? So let's just take 1 minute and see what arises in your points of leverage. Critical obstacle, underutilized resource, or new opportunity. Okay, take another 15 seconds to organize your thoughts, assimilate. All right, Tammy, you could take that slide down, and we can to see if anybody has 1 or 2 comments to share about what you learned from that brief exercise about points of leverage. Anybody want to share a thought, an insight, an opportunity?
I'll just say I think just thinking about underutilized resources, I would say all of ourselves and our own mind is an underutilized resource because we kind of go into things with an ego and set expectations and fears. And I think kind of getting past this idea of we think we know everything or we think there's not a different way of doing things holds us back from actually being able to do or accomplish a whole lot more. So I think it's simply just the ego, which is kind of let go of that and utilize our own minds. And that's the underutilized resource, in my opinion.
That is a brilliant way to move on to the next segment. Thank you, Drew. And I've seen you do that a lot in your growth as a young manager. So very inspiring to me working with you.
Drew,
All right. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to turn back to Tiffany and moving on to get to see the brilliant Tammy Alvarez tell us about leadership.
Thank you so much, Mark. So far, I have walked away with several aha moments, and I know the group has as well. My biggest one is we don't need more resources. We need more resourcefulness, right? So I'm going to go to the chat again and invite our amazing audience to please weigh in. What is the 1-degree shift you're making in the leverage pillar? What's the 1-degree shift? Are you shifting from I to we, from hoarding to sharing? Please go ahead and type your commitment in the chat. I'll give you just a few seconds to do that. Type your commitment in the chat. The 1-degree shift you are planning. Oh, wow. Fear to trust. Thank you so much, Alex, for sharing. Yes. Awesome. All right. So thank you very much. Now, to set the stage as we move and get settled and we move from pillar 2 to pillar 3, which is around evolution. Oh, thank you so much, Stephen. Thank you, Alex, for weighing in. We appreciate you participating in the chat. we have one more poll, and this will get us anchored. Pillar 3 evolution. Let's be honest about our career effectiveness. Effectiveness. In this next poll, I'll invite my tech team. Please pull up our poll number 3. And this is the effectiveness check. What's the biggest threat in your personal leadership effectiveness right now? And I'm checking to make sure all 4 questions are, all 4 answers and options are different. They are. So please go ahead and
sorry, Mark.
we got that. Thank you so much for that call out earlier. All right, biggest threat. Is it around skills expiring faster than you can update them? Is it about relying on your title versus your impact? Is it that you're too busy managing to learn something new, or you feel confident, but you just don't know what's next? Let's see. Wow, amazing. 71% is coming in at the bottom, right? Feeling confident, but not knowing what is next. We'll give a few more seconds to get to that 70, 80% mark of participation, and then we'll go ahead and share the results of our poll. The numbers are shifting, but not too much around that bottom one, the confidence versus knowing what's next and navigating that. All right, we're almost there. I think 1 or 2 more clicks and that'll put us there. All right. Would you, our tech team, I invite you to please go ahead and share the results of our poll.
Wow. Okay.
Please share the results. Everyone relying on their title versus their impact. Most people are really struggling with managing something new, being too busy. And the other one is around the confidence and not able to see what's next. So again, to get us ready, that brings us to our leadership breakpoint. Tammy Alvarez is going to be back to walk us through the 3 shifts that restore your authority, moving from control to calibration, moving from knowing all the answers to framing questions, and moving from speed to quality of thought. She's here to show us how to future ready leaders really think. Tammy, you have our attention. We can't wait for your talk and your activity for us.
Thank you. And thanks, Tiffany, for that and for the poll answers, which tees us up perfectly. When we started this conversation and I asked you guys to pop in the chat, does this feel hard? And do days feel harder than they should? We got a lot of yeses in the room. And here is something, when we feel like things are hard, that's actually not defeat. It's not burnout. It's not being tired. It's a signal. And it's a signal that we all need to pay attention to and lean in now. And that's what we want to talk about during the rest of our time today is where are those signals and how do I need to adjust to show up to be the leader that I need to maintain my own sanity, to support my team and the organization's objectives. And if you walk away with nothing else during our time today, this is one thing that I want you to really lean into. And this is the knowledge that the future belongs to the leader who has the courage to evolve before circumstances require them to. So many of us, to Wendy's point, like to just put our head down. And during times of chaos and massive disruption, it is so much easier to put our head down and just pretend that nothing's going on. And that this is all going to pass and we're going to wake up one day and everything is great. But the leaders who are able to put their head up and really see around the corner are the ones who are going to have the easiest time during what we're going through, as well as the better business results and team results to go along with it. And I want to start by sharing a story. And the timing was perfect. It was a coaching client that we had probably about 4 weeks ago. And she's a middle market executive. She reports directly to the CEO. And during our coaching session, she was on the verge of tears. And she is not a crier. So I was like, what is going on? And essentially what had happened is one of their peers had resigned. And they decided not to backfill that position. And they were going to recalibrate the team to work under one of the other leaders so that way they didn't have to pay for another executive salary. And everybody, including her, thought she was a shoo-in. It made the most sense. She had the most tenure. She was doing all the things right. Guess what? It went to one of her peers. And she was devastated. And when she went to the CEO and said, why did this happen? Why didn't you move this team under me? he said something that blew her mind. He said, quite frankly, we needed a leader for this group that was more future forward. And she sat back and, so my first thought was they went with someone younger. I'm like, that's code word for somebody younger. But as it turns out, the leader was older than she was. And so she had no idea what that meant. And she didn't want to ask the CEO because she already felt like she was, on thin ice. And so that's where she came into our sessions, like, what does this actually mean? And this is what I want to talk about today is what does this mean? Because every single one of you, as I was looking through the poll results, you feel confident in what you're doing. But there is that spidey sense that's tingling. There is that gut feeling that you have that is saying all the things that have gotten me where I am today are not going to take me where I need to go. And the world is changing too fast, and I don't know where to place my bet. And what we're going to talk about today is where to place that bet. Because when we think about it, we've got 5 generations in the workplace. We've got AI that's disrupting all the things in all the different ways. And we've got, business issues and geopolitical issues and climate issues and all of these things that are hitting us every single day on top of an exhausted workforce. People are tired. And everything is changing every 5 minutes. And so change fatigue is a thing. So how do we show up as leaders to be able to help our businesses grow, to help our teams thrive? Because when we look, and when it was talking about this futuristic world, for most of us, this is not our everyday normal, but here's where we're headed. Because when you can see where we're going, then you can figure out what are the 1-degree shifts you need to make to be able to get there. And I believe, based on all the things I'm reading and the experts that I'm talking to and the guidance we're getting, that within 5 years, we will be managing hybrid teams. But the definition of hybrid is now different. It's not who's in the office and who's not. We're talking about managing teams that are agents and humans. With this gig economy, this hierarchical mindset of leading by hierarchy will be gone because we will now have pods of delivery organizations that do very specific things, some that are in your control and some that are not. How do we manage that when we don't have command and control? And so these are the things that keep me up at night. When Wendy talks about how are you shifting and how do we do this, this is a big part of what shows up for me is how do we help businesses and leaders show up in a way that's going to naturally take them where the industries are headed. And I think that's the stuff I want to talk most about today, is that a lot of us, what the break point is for leaders is that moment where you know that everything that you've built so far in terms of your skills and your superpowers, they're not going to take you to where you need to go. You're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but you definitely need to up your game and change how you do things. Now, in the height of my career, just to give you a little bit of background, so I was a Wall Street executive for a long time. And at the height of my career, I was leading 2,000 people in 35 countries. And I am not going to lie, when control, having the answers, and moving fast was exactly how I got there, right? Because I knew the guardrails I wanted to put up, and I knew where we needed to head, and I knew how fast we needed to move. But those skills, if I was trying to lead that team today, would be a disaster. Because the leaders of the future are the ones that go from understanding or having that command and control to be able to collaborate, because the nuances are too strong and the variables are too significant. And you need everybody's perspective to be able to have that 360 view of what's really going on. Because we can't, the other thing I want to talk about is, we used to know all the answers because the rules didn't change that often, but now they do. And so the leader who will thrive moving forward are the ones who can ask the better question. And when we were doing our AI session last month, Neil Sahota brought up a really interesting point. And he's like, too many people are using AI to try and improve the light bulb instead of trying to find a new light source. And is that what we're doing? Are we using our knowledge to try and cobble together things that are better, or are we really in a position where we're asking the right questions? Instead of what's wrong, are we asking what's possible? So I want you to think about that in terms of how you're showing up for your leader, for your team, for your company, and for your clients. And then the last thing is speed. You know, we're not going to use, bad words here, but I was always known as the GSD girl. So we're going to call it get stuff done, but that's not what we used in the office. And it was all about getting things done fast. But now getting things done fast, when people are using AI, for example, to be able to use that, they're just running into brick walls faster and harder. And so do you want to really, run into that wall, or do you want to spend the time to think? And there's all this hype about AI and how it's going to save all this time so we can reduce staff. Well, what if we just use that time to let our team think? Because I think out of all the things we have as leaders, the one thing we have lost the most ability to do is take those quiet moments and actually think. What does it mean? How does it work? All of these types of things. And so I want us to really lean into, how do you move from control to collaboration? And there are 4 things that I think are really important for you to think through. Set the direction, not the actual tasks. So this is where we need to end up. What's the best way forward? And my team knows this because we do this all the time. I'm like, I am coming up with a place to end and a place to start, and I don't know what the messy middle looks like. But I know together we're going to come up with a better way to do that. Whereas old Tammy would have been like, all right, here's what we're doing. Here's how it's got to work. Let's go. And then everyone would execute, and I would manage to that. So think about setting that direction and then using those collaboration techniques to be able to really bring the team together, because things are going to change faster than we expect. People naturally have a resistance to change to begin with. So when they see their fingerprints in the solution, now there's a sense of ownership and joint accountability to each other, which is the best thing you can do. I'm going to ask you to set boundaries, not guardrails. So I used to set the guardrails and be like, as long as you stay in here, stay in your lane, we're good. And now what good looks like is, here's the no-fly zones. We don't want this to happen, and we don't want this to happen. Anything else is fair game. And then that way they know their boundaries, and then the team can come up with things directly. And here's something I want to get a sense in the chat. Let me know if this is something that you consciously do with intention, is shaping the energy of your team. So give me a yes or no in there. So for example, we're so used to shaping tasks. Who's best at what? Who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? Instead of saying, who gets fired up about doing this or that or the other thing? And so I want us to really think about shaping that energy, because when people are tired and when people feel burnt out and they feel overwhelmed, the fastest way to help them get back on track is to giving them things that energize them and having them do things that light them up. And then let your teams run. I'm sure we have all heard the concept of a fail-safe environment. How many of us have actually worked in one? Right? I mean, for me, it's like, oh, we're fail-safe until, raise time comes or promotion time comes. Oh, you screwed these things up. And so when you start to think about how you shift from control to collaboration, I want you to really think through, how do I create an experimental mindset culture? Where instead of saying, this is the result we demand, it's like, okay, things out of our control. We know how much is out of our control. How do we do this? And what does this button do? And then how do we move forward from that? So I think moving from control to collaboration, that's really important for us to be able to think through. The other thing is knowing all the answers. Well, before I do that, I want to ask you one question. You don't have to answer this in the chat, but I want you to take this away and sit with this for a second. And that's, as we identify with our own leadership identity, our brand, what we're known for, who do you become when you stop over functioning and start deliberately influencing? So hopefully that'll give us a sense of where we're going with that. From knowing all the answers, I think that the best thing we can do when we think about future forward practices is really asking those compelling questions. What if? What next? What's possible? instead of leading the witness with your bias and looking for them to confirm your assumptions, I think it's really important to come in and say, I don't have all the answers. And as a leader, sometimes that's the hardest thing to admit. But when you do come back and say, I know the questions we have to think about, I know the problems we have to solve, the opportunities that we have to take advantage of. So from that perspective, I want you to think through, how do you ask better questions? Some of the other questions, why now? What matters most? Because in our crisis environment where everything is due yesterday and we've got so many things that we have to get done, it's a great question to ask is, does this actually need to happen right this minute? And if it doesn't, then when does it? And when does that become important? And then Drew, because you teed it up for me, when we talk about releasing ego in favor of curiosity, in favor of, dare I say it, vulnerability, admitting that you don't have all the answers and you're not quite sure how this is going to turn out. But if you take those baby steps and you move into a minimal viable product as you're moving your company forward, then you can test and challenge. And it becomes part of the process because they expect failure. And so from that perspective, I think those are some of the ways that we can move from knowing all the answers to be able to frame better questions. So in the chat, I want you to give me a scale of 1 to 5. How good of a question asker are you? Can you ask those open-ended, compelling questions? Or are you on the struggle bus when it comes to that? Let's see where we are. Okay, we got Wendy's a good question asker. I know that for sure. So 5 is being awesome. So we'll 4.8. That's very specific, Lucas. I like that. Thank you. And as you guys are popping that stuff in there, I want to understand how we move from the concept of speed to quality of thought. Does anybody feel like you can take an extra 6 months to get something done right now? No. Do you think the market's going to wait for us to have 6 months to be able to get something done? No. So how do you do it? How do you move with speed, but still give yourself the time and the space to think? And here are some changes that I think are going to be really, really important for us to think through. When we move with speed today, we focus on what's always worked. We do this, then that, then this, boom, you're done. That doesn't work anymore. And I think, if you've had some failed initiatives or some things that have slowed down, that's a good reason to know that. And so what I want you to think about is recognizing patterns. Because what we know to be true, or what we've known to be true for the past 10 years, is no longer true. So instead of blindly assuming that people don't get it, guess what? It's us that don't get it. And so we've got to recognize these new patterns, and that's a skill that we need to build. We've always set incredibly aggressive deadlines for everything to be perfect, instead of now setting micro deadlines with expectations of experimentation. When we use a scientific method in business, it's not like if you develop something new and it fails, they say, oh, never mind, it didn't work, right? They try again. New sample size, new approach. We've got to take that mindset and how we work as well. We micro decision all day long. Do this, not that, up, down, blue, red, all of the things. And instead of that, make fewer, higher quality decisions. This is how you maintain velocity without creating burnout. And then the last thing is we are so reactive. Our competition is doing this. This didn't work right. We have a new urgent request. So instead of doing that calmness, even if you don't feel it, I strongly recommend you fake it till you make it. Because that vibe is going to carry through the rest of your tribe and the rest of your team and your clients and everyone else with them. And the one thing I want you to think about, because we are all so busy and we are all overtasked, overstimulated, over everything, that I want you to try and adopt this as a new mantra, in that stillness is not the absence of progress. It's the birthplace of wisdom. I'm going to say that one more time. Stillness is not the absence of progress. It's the birthplace of wisdom. And I think all of our teams need more wisdom with us. And so as you've thought about these things, and Tiffany will come back and think about what your 1 degree shift is. But I do want you to think about, how do I show up differently? How do I move from command and control to collaboration? How do I move from having to feel like I've got all the answers to being able to ask the better questions? And ultimately, how do I give myself the space to think and to be able to move with thoughtfulness when everyone around me is running around like crazy? So I want you to think about that, and how do you really put that together? And I do want to close with one story. Tiffany, I think I'm trying to pay attention to time here. I think we're good. A couple more minutes before we do that. And I was working a few months ago with a division president, and he definitely had a big boy job. He was in charge of about $4 billion worth of revenue. The company was counting on him. They were getting hit with the tariff whiplash. I mean, just things were out of control. And, what happened when we were talking is that it's like, I feel like on the outside, I look very successful. I've got this big team, I'm powerful, make all these decisions. He's like, but on the inside, something just feels off. And he couldn't figure out what it was. It just, the spidey senses were tingling. And just give me a yes or a no in the chat, whether, you've got some of these spidey sense moments too, so I can see if this is something that resonates. And as we were talking about it, I'm like, is it burnout? It's like, no. Is it frustration? Is it, all these things? And it was no. But here's what happened when we started really dissecting what was going on in his space. And I love all the yeses. So yes, all of our spidey senses, if they're not something they should be, right? And he was controlling too much instead of calibrating the team's direction and energy. He was still relying on having all the answers instead of figuring out how to ask those better questions, because he was a 2 at question answering, not a 5. He was moving way too fast. Like he was eating an elephant a day and not one bite at a time, like you're supposed to. And so the team was completely fried because they just could not keep up with the way he was moving. And what he didn't realize is that his speed was creating noise, not clarity. So how many of us are creating noise in our organizations without intending to? And then he was still trying to drive that execution personally, managing every task, making sure everything stayed, guardrails tight, walls high, instead of letting the team run in ways that energize them. And at the end of the day, when we really started to unpack this, he felt he was outgrowing who he was, but he didn't know who he was supposed to be. And I think based on the poll, that's very similar to where all of you are today, or most of you are today. And then on that Zoom call, he paused for so long, I thought my screen froze. And then he finally says, he's like, I have never been more successful, yet I've never felt more misaligned with the leader I'm supposed to be. And I think if we are feeling this way, there is no shame. It is how we all feel. But when we start taking these 3 pieces and putting them together, we're going to start to see, and what he saw is that he didn't overhaul his strategy. He didn't reorganize his team, and he didn't take a 6-month sabbatical. But what he did is he started doing these 3 things, and his team got stronger, and his decisions got sharper, and his presence got calmer. And I think that's something we can all use a little bit more of today. And so his team started asking, what changed? Why do things feel so different? Because they were micro changes. So Tiffany's going to take us back in terms of what micro changes we want to make, but you don't have to reinvent your business to be able to move forward in the level of clarity, purposefulness, and calm that we all want for ourselves and for our teams. So hopefully these 3 things will help a little bit. And don't forget that the future belongs to the leader who has the courage to evolve before circumstances force them to change. All right, Tiffany, I will send that back to you.
Thank you so much, Tammy. That was a wake-up call. The shift from managing everything to setting boundaries is liberating. Okay, one last time in the chat before we all break up for the day. What's the 1-degree shift you're going to make in terms of your leadership evolution? Are you going to shift from speed to quality, from knowing to questioning? Please go ahead and place that in the chat. This is your personal commitment, and remember, this is a safe space. Now we have one question that was in our Q&A, but for the sake of time, we're going to respond to that digitally. Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate all this coming in, taking time for silence to just think. That's an excellent commitment. Knowing to questioning. Thank you very much. Very knowing to questioning. That one is resonating with so many, leading from the mind to leading from the heart. Thank you very much. Well, we're just about time. I think I'd like to thank you all for your time today. It has been incredible being with you. We've got a lot. We've had a lot. We have several shifts that we had. I want to draw your attention to our screen. From the shifts and commitments that you made today, you have an opportunity to connect with our leaders. Beyond this moment, you'll notice there are some QR codes on the screen. Now, if you're watching the video recap, go ahead and pause your screen, take a picture of the QR code. Who would you like to connect with? The leaders today that have shown up to guide us through our 3 pillars are all willing to provide that breakthrough strategy session for you. There's a 30-minute complimentary call. You choose your speaker, choose your lane, go ahead and take a picture of the QR code and go ahead and book your time with one of our 3 speakers. Again, that is a complimentary call. At this time, I'd like to wrap us up and invite our founders back to center stage, please, Mark and Tammy. I'll give you 30 seconds to wrap us up.
Yeah, we got another 30 minutes to go, right?
There was a hot quote I wanted to put. Stillness is not the absence of progress, but the birthplace of wisdom?
Wisdom, yes.
Yes, wisdom. I'm popping that in the chat. That was my hot takeaway for everyone, and I'll give the floor to you to close us out. You and Mark.
Thanks. First of all, thank you everyone for spending time with us today. I hope you found this helpful in not just interesting information to move on with your day, but ways to think about how to show up differently as leader for yourself, for your teams, and for your organizations. Mark and Wendy and I are here to serve, here to help you navigate the chaos. We don't have it all figured out. At least I'll speak for myself when I say that. However, it is our business and our passion to help others on their journey as well. So really appreciate you being here. We've got our 3rd edition and our last event in January, which is about talent and people. So for those of you leading teams where you are just afraid that they're not locked in, this is going to be a thing for you to look at. But thank you so much for your attention today. I'll turn it over to Mark.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Tiffany, Wendy, and all my friends and colleagues who joined us. Better leaders make better companies, make a better world. Join us, reach out, ask for help, and thank you. Really, really love the work that I do because I work with people like you.
Thank you so much, Mark. And at this time, we want to make sure we thank our technical team behind the scenes, Kelly, Maya, Faith. We thank you so much for all the hard work you do behind the scenes, pulling us together. And for the rest of you, we started this journey talking about exhaustion, and we're ending it with a powerful roadmap, which you can pull from the chat. There were some specific shifts you need for clarity, leverage, and evolution. And remember, a 1-degree shift isn't about working harder. It's about simply changing your trajectory. We hope today did just that for you. We'll see you the next time. Thank you for joining the DWRU team, Disruption, the Future of Work Reimagined. Have a great day.